I think Saqib Nisar's latest conversation, which he has supposedly held informally with the journalists, I think it strikes most analysts, including myself, as something being preemptive, akin to how one of the Sharif children of Nawaz Sharif went to Javed Chaudhry and attempted to act innocent before the fact, before the Panama Papers were leaked. And it was later made known on the record that that interview was conducted after Omar Chima had reached out to them for a comment, or after the relevant ICIJ journalist investigating had reached out to them for a comment. So they had reacted by acting holier than everyone else and giving, the great neutral Javed Chaudhry an interview, and famously calling themselves hardworking, poor, who had brought themselves up from nothing after having been brought to nothing, and are now saying that they have always been rich, perhaps richer than the Tatas if one of their cousins is to be believed. Similarly, Saqib Nisar is sounded overall defensive. He said that my phone might have been hacked, so he's trying to take away from the credibility of some of the comments that he may have made, which he fears are about to come on the public record, perhaps by way of an audio leak or by way of a compromising document that bears his signature, or by way of something that would be familiar to him, perhaps a comment to a judge or some form of direction that he is giving to people that is less than proper. I think he is trying to cover up before the fact, and he then, in explaining himself, tried to speak of not having done Imran Khan any undue favors, and tried to address Nawaz Sharif as someone who is less than credible. But in so doing, he has only reminded everyone of his own lack of credibility and his extraordinary use of power, and his attempts at seeming innocent at the time when it became gradually known to all that there was less than bona fide intent behind what he was doing as Chief Justice, at times bordering on the ridiculous, such as his dam fund and his almost pathological urge to fill the dam fund through coercion, at times clear coercion of the cases before him. So Saqib Nisar has a lot to answer for, and making these ultimatum-laced comments about never speaking on the record again are perhaps preemptive as well. I think if something compromising about him does come out, I think his rather significant ego will not allow him to keep quiet about it. If Saqib Nisar had indeed learned to stay quiet and to stay within the limits of the law when it perhaps was needed most during his tenure as Chief Justice, he would not have been in the situation he finds himself in today, where he feels he needs to remind everyone that he might have done some things wrong. That is not an admission. That is also him trying to present himself as somehow human or less than perfect as everyone else is. But the truth is that it isn't just the less than perfect, it is the deliberate miscarriages of justice that Saqib Nisar was either part of or authored or was instrumental in allowing to happen as Chief Justice of this country that he will have to answer for. Saqib Nisar was the willing pawn in the Panama and post-Panama processes which upended the concept of fair trial, which allowed for Nawaz Sharif and his family to today claim that they have been exonerated somehow, when in fact if the revelations of the Panama Papers had been put through the courts of law and had they been given a fair trial, they would have likely stood discredited, and because they did not have answers for the vast quantums of wealth that they had accumulated abroad in the names of the other family members of Nawaz Sharif. But because of the way the trial was run, because of the way the judiciary influenced the investigative team, how the investigative team itself was created, how later the NAB trial was run, and how 7 days a week was supposed to be the fastest trial in Pakistani history, and how justice was miscarried there. Had Saqib Nisar not influenced all of these things, perhaps we would have had a chance to mature in our political conversation, where for the first time revelations had come across independently through a neutral body that showed the House of Sharif as being less than honest financially. And had these been taken to their logical conclusions rather than through interventions in pursuit of perfection, we would have perhaps been in a more mature political climate. Yet we find ourselves, because of these interventions, we find ourselves in a space where Zardari and Sharif and their appendage wealth and their appendants and the wealth surrounding them can claim, not inaccurately, that they are innocent and they have been in some way exonerated by a court process that started with a farce and ended with one. And we are all left scratching our heads, trying to understand how is it, after all, that these people are billionaires in sterling terms, whilst never having had anything that could amount to it as wealth, how they ended up where they are. And we are told, well, you know, it's all lawful, because when people like Saqib Nisar tried to go after us by bending the law, they couldn't find anything. So the greatest disservice that Saqib Nisar did was to the rule of law, ironically to the same concept that he was pretending to champion when he went about visiting hospitals, tasting food in prisons, and pretending to run a fund to create a dam which he felt he was an expert at. But most importantly, to the political process as well, where he upended process and created extraordinary joint investigation teams run by the same people who are perhaps now being indirectly accused of having hacked into his phone. It was he who allowed these illegitimate usurpations of power, pretended nothing was wrong, pretended it was for a grand, greater design, and he must now answer for it. And it would be better if he answered for it publicly before, he is able to get what he feels is the last laugh by writing a biography that will come out posthumously. I don't think he should be afforded that privilege. He must answer for his crimes today.